The soft hum of my old washing machine was usually a comfort, a steady beat beneath the mundane rhythm of life in my modest Stonewood, Pennsylvania home. At 29, I had built a life I was proud of, a thriving freelance graphic design business, a close-knit circle of friends, and parents who lived just a few towns over, always ready with advice or a warm meal. My days were filled with color palettes and client meetings, my evenings with quiet reflection or laughter with loved ones. I was independent, content, and open to the possibility of a deep connection, should it ever arrive. I believed in genuine partnership, in the kind of love that uplifted both individuals. My world felt complete, yet ready to expand. Then I met Julian. It was at a local art exhibition, a charity event I had designed promotional materials for. He was an architect, 31, with eyes that held an intense, almost melancholic depth, and a smile that promised understanding. He talked about his passion for sustainable design, his dreams of creating structures that blended seamlessly with nature. We connected over shared ideals, over a mutual appreciation for beauty and purpose. He mentioned his long-term girlfriend, Sarah, almost as an aside, a faded detail in his life's grand tapestry. "She's stable," he had said, his voice dropping, "but we've been together since college. It's more of a commitment of convenience now, I suppose." A quiet sigh followed, heavy with unspoken regret. My first instinct, born of my own moral compass, was to retreat. "Julian," I stated clearly, my voice even, though my heart had already fluttered at his proximity, "I do not become involved with men who are already committed. That is a boundary I will not cross." I turned to leave, but he stepped into my path, not aggressively, but with an almost pleading gentleness. "Eleanor, please. This is different. What we have, this connection, it's rare. I've never felt this understood by anyone. Sarah and I have grown apart. We are just roommates, really. I am trapped, and I am searching for a way out." He painted a picture of a dying relationship, a man yearning for freedom, for a true partner who could truly see him. He spoke of his guilt, his fear of hurting Sarah, but always circled back to the overwhelming, undeniable pull he felt towards me. "You are the one who makes me feel alive again," he whispered one evening over coffee, his hand briefly covering mine. "You are my escape." He pursued me with a quiet intensity, not with grand gestures, but with profound conversations, shared silences that felt more intimate than words, and a vulnerability that chipped away at my defenses. He'd send me articles related to our discussions, suggest obscure films he knew I'd appreciate, and remember every small detail I'd ever mentioned. He was constantly present, in a way no one else had been. He promised that he would end things with Sarah, that he just needed time to navigate the logistics, to do it right. He convinced me that I was not breaking up a happy home, but rather helping a good man find his true path, and that I was his destined partner. I started to believe him. I wanted to believe him. The sheer force of his conviction, combined with the undeniable magnetic pull I felt, was overwhelming. My initial resolve crumbled. I took the leap of faith, crossing a threshold I never imagined I would. Our relationship began, cloaked in secrecy, fueled by stolen moments and whispered promises of a future that felt impossibly close, yet perpetually out of reach. The months that followed were a blur of intoxicating highs and devastating lows. From August until well into the new year, my life became a carefully choreographed dance around Julian's schedule, his moods, his promises. He never truly left Sarah. Each time I gently pressed him, he would become evasive, citing complicated family matters, financial entanglements, or Sarah's fragile emotional state. "It just isn't the right time, Eleanor," he would say, his voice laced with feigned regret. "Trust me, I want this more than anything, but I have to handle it delicately. You understand, don't you?" And I always did. Or rather, desperately wanted to. He was pouring all his energy into a major career project, a complex architectural bid for a new, prestigious community development in Philadelphia, a project that could define his career. He worked tirelessly, often late into the night. I found myself becoming his unofficial assistant, dedicating countless hours to helping him with research, organizing his presentations, even refining his concept sketches. I reviewed his proposals, offering feedback, proofreading every document. I believed I was investing in our future, in our shared success. I neglected my own clients, my own work, often turning down commissions because I was exhausted or waiting for his call. My vibrant social life dimmed. My usually tidy home became cluttered, a reflection of my inner chaos. My friends, observant and loyal, began to voice their concerns. Eleanor, my best friend Chloe, said one afternoon, her brow furrowed, "You look so tired. And you never talk about your own projects anymore. It's always about Julian. Is he ever going to leave her?" My mother, usually so gentle, was more direct. "Honey, he's never going to leave her. You are losing yourself, and it's painful to watch." I would nod, offer a weak defense, and then retreat, feeling misunderstood and even more isolated. I knew they were right deep down, but the thought of losing Julian, of admitting I had been so foolish, was unbearable. I was deeply attached, convinced that if I just held on a little longer, if I helped him achieve his goal, he would finally be free, and we could truly begin. By December, the constant anxiety had become a physical weight. I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with endless scenarios, arguments, and desperate hopes. My appetite vanished. I experienced frequent panic attacks, my chest tightening, my breath catching in my throat. My focus at work was non-existent. I'd stare blankly at my computer screen, unable to conjure a single creative idea. I felt a constant dull ache behind my eyes, a pervasive sadness that clung to me like a shroud. One frigid morning, after another sleepless night spent tracing patterns on the ceiling, I simply couldn't get out of bed. My body felt heavy, my mind a tangled mess of despair. My parents, who had driven over after not hearing from me for 2 days, found me curled in a ball, shivering, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't speak, could barely respond. The strength I had prided myself on had completely evaporated. My parents immediately drove me to the emergency room. After initial assessments, and with the help of a kind, understanding doctor, I was admitted to the behavioral health unit. It was a terrifying experience, yet also strangely liberating. For 5 days, I underwent intense therapy sessions, talking about Julian, about the promises, the secrecy, the emotional toll. My therapist, Dr. Ramirez, was compassionate but firm. On my last day, sitting across from her, she looked at me with clear, unwavering eyes. "Eleanor," she said, her voice gentle but authoritative, "you have been in an emotionally abusive relationship. You poured yourself into a man who drained you. Your anxiety and depression are direct consequences of this dynamic. You cannot heal while you are still tethered to him. You must end this relationship, not for him, but for yourself. Your life depends on it." Her words were a jolt of cold water, cutting through the fog of my delusion. The drive home, with my mother silently gripping my hand, was filled with a profound emptiness, but also a burgeoning sense of resolve. Dr. Ramirez's words echoed in my mind. Your life depends on it. On January 2nd, 2 days after leaving the hospital, I picked up my phone, my hands shaking. I called Julian. His voice, when he answered, was smooth, oblivious. "Eleanor, how are you? I've been so busy with the final proposal for the project." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "Julian," I began, my voice surprisingly steady, "I am calling to tell you that this is over. I cannot continue this relationship." There was a beat of silence, then his familiar, manipulative tone. "What?" "Eleanor, wait. I told you I'm planning on leaving Sarah by March. We talked about this. Don't do this now, not when things are so close." My resolve hardened. "No, Julian. There will be no March. There will be no later. This is finished. Effective immediately." I heard his exasperated sigh on the other end, but I didn't care. I hung up the phone before he could say another word, and the silence that followed was deafening, yet somehow a fragile beginning. The breakup was brutal, a wrenching amputation of a relationship that had become a parasitic growth, but I held my ground. I had just taken the first agonizing step towards reclaiming my own life. The lingering scent of my own tears seemed to cling to the air in my small apartment in Stonewood, Pennsylvania. Every morning, I'd wake up to it, a constant reminder of the gaping wound Mark had left behind. 2.5 months had passed since I uttered those final words, forced by my doctor, forced by the sheer, crushing weight of a love that had become a cage. The first 2 months were a blur of raw grief, a relentless, consuming sorrow that stole my breath and blurred my vision. I cried almost every single day, the tears a hot, endless river that mirrored the desolation inside me. My friends, bless their patient hearts, would call, their voices laced with concern. "Eleanor, please eat something," Sarah would plead, her tone gentle. "Come over, just for a bit." My family, too, offered their solace, though I could hear the faint, unspoken "I told you so" in their hushed tones. They had warned me, every single one of them, to walk away from Mark, to see the red flags waving furiously in the wind. But I had been so deeply attached, so completely enveloped in the illusion of our proper partnership, the companionship, the camaraderie, the intimacy, that I had dismissed their wisdom, believing my love could conquer all. Now, they were not surprised by my utter collapse. The irony was a bitter pill I choked on daily. The medication for anxiety, depression, and sleep deprivation helped dull the edges of the sharp pain, but the emptiness remained. I had made Mark the center of my world, helping him with his PhD, catering to his every need, utterly losing myself in the process. Now, with him gone, that center was a void, echoing with the sound of my own brokenness. I had lost my job too, my productivity shattered by the emotional stress and pain. Then slowly, like a flicker in the darkest night, something new began to stir within me. The endless well of tears started to dry, replaced by a simmering heat. Anger. It wasn't the volatile, destructive rage that consumed you, but a cold, steady indignation. I started reading articles online about emotional abuse, about manipulative relationships, about gaslighting. With each paragraph, a piece of the puzzle clicked into place. I wasn't just heartbroken. I had been used, discarded like a convenient prop in someone else's life story. My doctor, Dr. Chen, during our therapy sessions, helped me see this with crystal clarity. "Eleanor," she had said gently during one session, "you put your entire self into that relationship. You poured into him what he should have found within himself, or with a partner who was fully committed to you. His actions were not a reflection of your worth, but of his own limitations and lack of integrity." Her words were a balm, then a catalyst. I began to understand that my pain wasn't just about missing him. It was about the profound injustice of his actions, the blatant disrespect for my feelings and my contributions. He was getting his PhD, thanks in no small part to my effort, looking for a job and getting married, while I was picking up the pieces of a life he had helped shatter. That was the core of my anger, the fuel for a new resolve. I wanted him to understand, not to suffer, but to truly grasp the depth of what he had done, not to destroy his life, but to make him confront the truth of his own actions, even for a moment. My initial thoughts were vengeful, childish even. But Dr. Chen helped me reframe. "Revenge, Eleanor," she explained, "often keeps us tethered to the very person we want to escape. True freedom comes from reclaiming your power, from asserting your truth in a way that heals you, not harms them." This shifted my perspective. My revenge wouldn't be about tearing him down, but about building myself up and delivering a clear, dignified message that could not be ignored. It had to be light, as the Reddit post had said, but impactful. It had to be about my voice, my truth. The one thing he was celebrating, his PhD, was the one thing where my fingerprints were undeniably present. I remembered the countless late nights, the obscure academic journals I'd painstakingly summarized for him, the detailed outlines I'd helped him structure, the endless hours spent proofreading and refining. My mind, my energy, my time, all invested in his success. The idea solidified in my mind during one of my walks through Ridley Creek State Park, a place I once associated with peaceful solitude but now was my sanctuary for fierce self-reflection. I found out through a mutual acquaintance that Mark's official university celebration for PhD graduates was scheduled for the end of May. It was less than a month away. This was it. This was my moment. I started to meticulously plan. It wasn't about a scene or a confrontation. It was about presence. It was about showing him, and perhaps anyone who might notice, that I was not the broken woman he had left behind. I would attend the celebration. Not to cause a ruckus, but to be seen. To be strong. To reclaim my narrative. First, I focused on myself. I doubled down on my therapy sessions. I started exercising again, running the trails in the park until my lungs burned and my muscles ached, pushing out the emotional pain with every stride. I rediscovered my love for painting, losing myself in vibrant colors and bold strokes. I started looking for new job opportunities, updating my resume with a fierce determination. I needed to stand tall, literally and figuratively. My confidence slowly began to return. I bought a new dress, something elegant and understated, in a deep forest green that complemented my eyes. I spent hours practicing what I would say, not to him directly, but if I encountered him. It wasn't about accusations. It was about acknowledging my contribution with quiet power. The key was to make him uncomfortable, to force him to acknowledge a truth he had conveniently forgotten, without being accusatory or emotional. The day of the celebration arrived, crisp and bright, a stark contrast to the storm that had raged within me for months. My heart pounded a steady drumbeat in my chest as I drove onto the university campus. The grand hall where the reception was held was abuzz with proud families, professors, and beaming graduates. I scanned the room, a tremor running through me as I spotted Mark, surrounded by a small group, likely his family and no doubt his fiancée. He looked exactly as I remembered him, perhaps a little heavier, a little more confident. The sight of him, so utterly oblivious to the wreckage he had left in his wake, solidified my resolve. I took a deep breath, steadied my nerves, and walked purposefully towards him. I kept my expression serene, a calm dignity masking the hurricane of emotions swirling inside me. As I approached, one of his relatives noticed me and nudged him. Mark turned, his smile faltering, replaced by a flicker of surprise, then an uncomfortable recognition in his eyes. His fiancée, a pretty blonde woman, looked curiously from him to me. I offered a small, polite smile, focusing on Mark. "Mark, congratulations on your PhD," I said, my voice clear and steady, devoid of any tremor. "It's a significant achievement. I'm truly happy for you." His eyes darted around, clearly unsettled. "Eleanor," he stammered, his cheeks flushing. I didn't expect to see you here." I maintained eye contact, my gaze unwavering. "I felt it was important to be here," I replied, my voice gaining a quiet strength. "I remember the countless nights we spent working on the foundational research for your dissertation, especially that challenging section on qualitative data analysis. I poured a lot of myself into those efforts." A nervous laugh escaped him. He shifted his weight, his discomfort palpable. "Yes, well, it was a joint effort in parts," he mumbled, trying to downplay my statement, his gaze flickering to his fiancée, who was now looking at him with a puzzled expression. "Indeed," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "and I'm glad to see all that hard work, from both of us, has truly paid off for you." I let the words hang in the air, a quiet assertion of truth that he could not refute without looking bad. It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement of fact, delivered with such calm conviction that it exposed his duplicity far more effectively than any outburst ever could. His face tightened, a vein throbbing faintly in his temple. He had nowhere to hide, no easy escape. "Well," I concluded, giving a small, graceful nod, "I just wanted to offer my congratulations. Enjoy your celebration, Mark." With that, I turned, a feeling of immense lightness settling over me. I didn't linger to see his reaction, or his fiancée's. I didn't need to. The feeling of release was profound. It wasn't triumph, not in a vengeful sense. It was the deep satisfaction of reclaiming my narrative, of speaking my truth with dignity, and leaving him to grapple with the discomfort of it. I had planted a seed of doubt, a quiet reminder of his less than honorable past, not with a storm, but with a gentle breeze. I left the university grounds with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. I didn't care what he thought or did after that. My focus was purely on myself. A few days later, a text message arrived, as I knew it eventually would. It was from Mark. "Hey Eleanor," it read. "I was surprised to see you at the celebration. I hope you're doing okay. After a few years, this will all go away, and we can be close friends. I stared at the message, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching my lips. The arrogance, the continued minimization of my pain, the audacity to suggest a casual friendship after what he had put me through. But there was no longer anger, just a profound sense of clarity. He still didn't get it, and he probably never would. And that was okay, because I got it. I typed out my reply, carefully choosing each word, ensuring it was direct, final, and empowered. Mark, I wrote, I am doing more than okay. I am thriving. What we had was not a friendship to be resumed, nor was it a healthy relationship. It was a period of significant emotional abuse that I have worked incredibly hard to heal from. I understand now that my past contributions, both personal and professional, were taken advantage of. While I wish you well in your future, I have no interest in being close friends with someone who caused me such profound suffering. My path forward is one of self-respect and healthy boundaries. Please do not contact me again. I pressed send, then blocked his number without a second thought. It felt like severing the last invisible thread that had bound me to him, finally, completely. The months that followed were a testament to my newfound strength. I landed a fantastic job as a project manager for a nonprofit organization focused on mental health advocacy. My experiences, once a source of deep shame and pain, transformed into a wellspring of empathy and purpose. I channeled my energy into supporting others who had experienced similar emotional manipulation, volunteering my time, sharing my story anonymously at first, then more openly, and advocating for greater awareness about the insidious nature of emotional abuse in relationships. My home, once filled with the ghost of Mark and the scent of my tears, became a vibrant sanctuary of my own creation. I filled it with plants, with art, with the laughter of new, healthy friendships. I started taking pottery classes, molding clay with my hands, shaping something beautiful and new from raw material, much like I had reshaped my own life. I learned to trust my instincts, to recognize red flags not just in others, but within myself, the desire to overgive, to lose myself in another's needs. Eleanor Vance, at 29, was no longer defined by the man who had discarded her. She was a woman who had faced her deepest pain, learned from it, and emerged not only intact but profoundly transformed. Her story became a quiet ripple, reaching out to others, inspiring them to find their own voices, to set their own boundaries, and to understand that true empowerment comes not from tearing others down, but from building oneself up, one courageous step at a time. My journey was far from over, but the path ahead was bright, clear, and entirely my own.